Recently, someone reached out to me to buy my Spotify playlist, and at first I didn't think much of it, but as another message came in, it kind of got me thinking more about how people are coming up with this number and what the demand for it is. So, the first message that I got was just very general about working with curators, so I was kind of curious of what that meant, like if I would be they wanted me to curate things for their playlist, but it turned out just to be they wanted to buy my playlist. So I mentioned that I wasn't interested, and then they were open to negotiating and also open to not just transferring the ownership, but just making them a collaborator on the playlist. The second time, this was a different account, but they also offered $300, which got me thinking, like, is everyone using the same formula to calculate this? Is there some type of market rate for my playlist? And so I asked them, and they showed me the playlist stats of my playlist. There were the followers growth over the past year, and gave that as the reasoning of why they're offering this amount of money, and also noted that it's negotiable. So, anyways, I just thought that was interesting. And so, emotional and sentimental value aside, there was something about the idea of putting a monetary value on a playlist that I couldn't wrap my head around. Like, if you're offering me $300, then that means the opportunity for you to make money is more than $300. If someone wants to buy a Spotify playlist, you're not paying for the collection of songs itself. Because theoretically, you could just make a playlist with the same songs, cover image, description, and I have actually had that happen to me, people like copying this playlist. But, anyways, you're not paying for that. You're paying for, I guess, the followers, the monthly active listeners, and the search engine optimization or whatever places that it's linked in. And I guess if you were added as a collaborator and I'm not like fully transferring the ownership, you might be paying for my curation or my taste if I'm updating the playlist in an ongoing manner. But what does that actually get you? Ultimately, I assume the end goal is for artists to get streams, and that's why more artists reach out to me than playlist buyers. But I assume that the playlist buyers' way of making money is by selling placements to artists. So I guess the question is, how much money are artists willing to pay for playlist promo? And is there like benefits outside of stream revenue from being on a playlist, like more opportunities for fans who will buy merch or go to events? But this is kind of tricky to calculate the value of. Maybe you could correlate the time that you started marketing things on playlists and see like how that correlates with your other analytics going up. But if we're just looking at streams and streaming potential, I guess that's where this chart comes in. I think that the chart that this person was using is from isitagoodplaylist.com because the color looks similar, but you have to register to get access, so I'm gonna look at a different website instead. This one is artist.tools, and they give you, so let's go on overview. Actually, overview is not that useful. I'll go back to graphs. So this is, I think, the free version. There's like some things that are disabled that I'm not able to click. Yeah, it only shows me up to 7 days of data, but just so that you can get an idea of what people might be looking for as a playlist buyer, I feel like certain things like track popularity and age, I can't really think of how useful they would be. To me, the two most important metrics would be followers and listeners. You want to see if the follower is growing over time to see if it's like actually a good investment and people will continue to listen to it or not, like if the growth is steady. And then also you want to check the listeners to make sure that artists will actually get streams from listening to it. Another random thing that I kind of thought was cool was that I guess if you're an artist, they give you like an email template so that you can reach out to the playlist maker and try to get featured on it. Okay, so Submit Hub I think is better because you can see the data beyond 7 days. So here's 30 days, 90 days, 1 year, and all time. So Submit Hub is saying that per song, the monthly listeners is 200 to 300, and Artist Tools is saying that in the past 7 days, it's been 600. Some very quick math based on an average of 0.004 cents per stream. So if we're going with, also it's not factoring in like playlist growth or the opposite of growth, like less listeners over time. If we're going by like 300 monthly listeners per song, then that means that an artist will earn about $1.20 monthly or $14 annually. And if it's on the upper end, like 600 monthly listeners, then they will be earning like $2 monthly and almost $29 in a year, which really is not that much. It is totally possible that artists find value in being on a playlist outside of just the streams themselves, and maybe my playlist isn't as good as other playlists and they have more monthly active listeners, but just based on the numbers, let's say that I'm a playlist buyer and I'm just pulling this out of nowhere, but if I have 20 artists, if I find 20 artists willing to pay for a placement on my playlist, maybe I feel like a reasonable price would be like $10 for their song for a year. So that would put me at making $200 a year, which is like a $100 loss after a year, with the $300 that I spent on it. So I don't know, this can't be right because this doesn't seem very lucrative. Okay, pause. So I'm watching this back and I think I'm undervaluing being on a playlist, and I think this math might be a little bit flawed because even though the playlist itself might only be getting like 600 monthly streams, out of those 600 people, they might start liking an artist and then they could be listening to it outside of the playlist. They could be adding the song to their own playlist and their friends might see it, and there could be just some type of like compound effect that you can't really measure by just looking at the playlist statistics itself, but hopefully it will be reflected in the artist statistics. Okay, back to the video. I was trying to find out what other people charge, and I came across this video from Dorian Group 82, who back in 2018 was acting as a playlist broker and originally had connections to like a playlist network of over 300 playlists, and he was working as a middleman to connect artists to playlists. So by charging artists more, he will like make more of a profit. But then later, he bought the playlist to directly sell to the artists, which increased his profit margin. And I think he said something like he messaged all 300 of these playlist owners and only 6 of them agreed, but that's how he started off. And at that time, he was offering $50 per playlist. So I don't know what happened between $50 then to $300 now, and he was charging artists $100 for one playlist. But I guess it worked for him, so there's really artists out there who find value in this and it works for them. I also saw this video from Put You On by Steve Cardigan where he used his playlist as a sort of like a radio show. He had like a podcast and he put the podcast in between like a few songs. So it was kind of like a modern version of a radio, and in the podcast he could like sell ads and sponsor placements, and he also used these playlists as playlist parties and can reach out to venues and stuff and made like a whole business out of that. So I really think that I guess the people who are buying playlists have some type of like creative entrepreneurship types of ideas, and it's not just this streaming math that I was doing. Another video that I came across was by this person called Wild Crow, and he was talking about how he makes money through this platform called Playlister Club. I think the name got changed to Song Tool, but how it works is that people can get approved as like playlist curators, and you get paid a different amount of money per song in a playlist per month based on like the number of followers in that you have in the playlist. There is some more elaborate system that he gets into, but that's basically the gist of it. If your playlist has like over 5K followers, then it will be like $30 per song. And I think there's another tier not mentioned here for over 25K as well. And looking at the website, it looks like artists are paying $5 a day for this. So I guess my initial calculation of $10 per year was definitely way off. There are also other similar platforms such as Playlist Push, where you can also register to be like a curator, and there's usually some like playlist requirements like the follower size and listener activity, and Submit Hub is another one, which brings me to a question that is actually on Submit Hub's website on does this entire selling thing violate Spotify's terms? So it actually does say here in their user guidelines in number 7 that you cannot, it is not permitted to appear, not permitted to sell an account or a playlist or influence something the account included on an account or playlist. So like that means both selling a playlist and selling a placement on a playlist. However, how these platforms like Submit Hub, Playlist Push, Song Tool are safe is because you are not getting paid to add a song to your playlist. You are getting paid to be on this platform, and you are charging to listen to the song and decide on your own volition whether to add the song or not, but you get paid regardless. I'm not actually sure if that's like the logic behind all of the platforms. Maybe some of them may slightly differ, but that's how I see it. And in Wild Crow's video, he also mentioned that he does know people who actually got their account deleted from engaging in that direct selling activity. So just something to keep in mind. And yeah, for the time being, I don't plan on making any money off of my playlists through any of these methods I just talked about. I was more just kind of curious and wanted to find out more about it. I think for me, just putting more effort into this kind of takes the fun out of it a little bit for me. I've thought about whether to remove my username from my Spotify or not, so that maybe I'll be less hard to reach out to. But I do have a lot of, I don't know, like respect and appreciation for artists who are trying to get more recognition. So usually, like if people reach out to me to listen to their song, like I totally don't mind listening to it when I get the time. But I'm just, I guess right now, not really looking to monetize that in any way. But I don't know, maybe that will change in the future. So I thought that was the end of the video, but then I realized I never really answered the question, how much is a playlist worth? So to recap, if you want to sell it, it'll probably be around $300 these days. If you're using a playlist curation platform, you could earn anywhere from $500 to $500 of recurring revenue per month, depending on how active you are in adding songs and how popular your playlists are, or if you have multiple playlists. But if you choose to go the route of starting your own business or some kind of ad placement, I'm sure that the number is much more unknown, but potentially higher. But to me, my playlist will always be priceless.